company dismissed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for
Whoa.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Sky Blues History Podcast. And tonight I think we've got a bit of a heavyweight contest on our hands. This is the Sky Blues version of the Rumble in the Jungle, the thriller in Manila. And in the Sky Blue corner, we have our very own club historian, Jim Brown. And in the black corner, representing Singers FC, we have author and club archivist, that's how you say it, Lionel Bird. And as for me, I'm somewhere in the middle. Although in the presence of these two, I feel a little bit more like Joe Bugner facing Ali and Foreman. I'm certainly not going to pretend I can compete with either of these two when it comes to Coventry City history. Because when it comes to all things Coventry City, these two really are the elite. Tonight, we're going right back to the beginning, before there was Coventry City Football Club, before Highfield Road, and before the Sky Blues were known as they are today as the Sky Blues. We're going to talk about Singers FC, how the club was formed, the people behind its formation, the reasons it came into existence, and ultimately how the club helped pave the way towards what became Coventry City Football Club. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Claudio and Jim.
Good evening, both of you. And welcome, Lionel. I've been saying to Claudia for some time, we need to get you on to talk about the Singers. You and I have known each other for a long, long time, probably over 50 years, I think. Going so. Back to the early 70s. And, I don't think anybody has ever done as much research into the early days of the club as you. And it's great to have you on to talk about this fascinating subject.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah.
Now, we know that the Singers FC was founded in 1883, but by then football's already becoming a well-established sport. And the first FA Cup had been played in 1871-72 season, and by 1883, there'd already been 11 cup finals. You also had clubs such as Sheffield FC, founded in 1857, Notts County, generally regarded as being founded in 1862. And of course, the FA itself was formed in 1863. And by the time Singers came along, there were already established dozens of football clubs. So my first question, Lionel, is, would I be right in thinking that there must have been other football clubs, or at least organised football teams, already operated in around Coventry before Singers FC was formed in 1883? And if so, what do we actually know about these early clubs and the football that was being played in Coventry before Singers?
Well, it all starts in 1869 in the village of Stoke, which was outside the Coventry City boundary then, so obviously it's part of Warwickshire. So a guy called John Sidney Clark, he was quite rich, his family were rich, and it was in the Stoke Green area, which that's where the first pitch was. It was referred to as Old Gentleman's Green. And he got a load of locals together, bought the football and probably subsidised the equipment and that. And they started playing where the cricket pitch would have been situated and Stoke Green. That was 1869. But in 1873, there were no association football teams in Coventry at that time. So in 1873, Stoke Village FC, as we know them as Stoke FC, they turned up at Aldersley Park College to play a game, and unfortunately, because of very poor communications in those days, Aldersley Park College were a rugby union team, so decided to play 40 minutes, 45 minutes under association rules and 45 minutes under rugby union rules. Now, the ironic thing about that is from that game, Coventry Rugby Club evolved out of that game because the Stoke players enjoyed the rugby union side of it that much that John Sidney Clark, because he had business premises in Little Park Street in the city centre, and his father was well connected with, businessmen and, the gentry in the city of Coventry, he hooked up with Harry Rapp, the famous Coventry player Harry Ratliff and the Ratliff brothers, and they formed Coventry Rugby Club, which was 1874.
So, so the Stoke Green, would I be right in saying that's sort of on the Binley Road going towards
Yes,
the old city
yeah,
ground?
yeah. It's I think it's quite some way past there. If I haven't been down that way for a long time, but it's quite a way out. But that's where it all started, basically. But, the interesting thing is that by 2 years later, after Cov Rugby Club had formed, Coventry Wanderers Cricket Club, they decided, the members of that club decided they wanted to play association football rather than rugby union. They didn't fancy the rough and tough of the rugby union, and there was loads of rugby union clubs around at that time. But they didn't change. They called themselves Coventry Wanderers FC, and they, in their fixtures, they came against the same problem. They were turning up for games, and it was rugby union teams. And the way they got round that was quite clever. They changed the name from Coventry Wanderers FC to Coventry Association FC, and obviously the word association you could see straight away. So that enabled them to get better, fixtures against association teams. Eventually, they played some quite high profile. Well, they played Notts Forest. There's one example.
Yeah.
1876. They went out of business around about 1881, 1882, because Coventry Rugby Club by then had amassed a great following, and they just couldn't attract enough people to go to the games. But there is a connection between Coventry Association and Singer FC, which, if I just briefly explain that and then let Jim and yourself come in. There's Joseph Collins and Harry Banks. They both played for Coventry Association. There's a possibility that Herbert Turner did as well. And they were all employees of the Singer factory. And of course, around about 1882, they'd stopped playing. Following year, Singers are formed with the arrival of Willie Stanley and that. So that's the connection.
There's a misconception, isn't there, by a lot of people about the Singers? Because I think some people think of them as the sewing machine, but obviously they weren't, were they?
No, it's George Singer. Obviously, when he formed his bicycle business, I think it was 1875, round about there. He'd come to Coventry a few years earlier. I think it was 1869 when he came to Coventry. And once that was established, it was near the Canal Basin, Leicester Street, which I think was near the Canal Basin, just off Stonestown Road, somewhere around that area. And then when he expanded the business, because it started to become successful, he moved to Alma Street, which is where the bicycle business was in 1883, and then subsequently moved to bigger premises in Canterbury Street in 1891.
There's a pub on the corner of Alma Street, the Foresters.
Yes, I don't think it's there now, but it's not there now. But yeah,
and student accommodation across the road. I know because I built on it. I was doing part building. Yeah, I did some stuff on it. Jim, over to you.
Yeah, I was just thinking what was Coventry like in 1883? I guess it was a boom town because of the massive cycle industry. Everybody wanted a bicycle, didn't they?
They did. Yeah.
So it was a lively industrial town.
It certainly was. And at one time, I think by the mid 1890s or early 1890s, at the time when things had become really successful, there was over 5,000 people employed in the bicycle industry across the city. And when you consider, I'm not quite sure what the population of the city was then, but that was a massive figure. The bicycle industry had replaced the watchmaking industry and the weaving industry, basically.
Yes. So tell us a bit about George Singer then.
Well, to me, he was way ahead of his time as an employer. He was born in Dorset, 1847, and when he came to Coventry, I think it was either the 1881 census. He was actually lodging in Lower Ford Street, and Hillman, the guy who formed Hillman Motor Cars. Now, these were all young men. They were engineers, and they'd found accommodation in Coventry and were working. But he, once the Singer Bicycle Factory had been established, it grew dramatically, and they had some famous, they were royalty, not only just in this country, but Austria and Germany, where they were selling, bicycles to them. George Singer was way ahead of his time in terms of an employer, way ahead. He really valued his workers. One of the things that he did to reward them was once a year they had an annual. This don't sound much nowadays, but this was a massive thing in those days. An annual picnic where they would go to Stoneleigh Deer Park. Lord Lee, who later became the first president of the football club, he allowed them to use the grounds, and they would all cycle over there. There was something like 35 bicycle clubs, and they all went on this picnic. So they'd go during, spend most of the day there, and they all had Chinese lanterns on the front of their bikes. Once it had gone a bit dark, to get back home to Coventry, it was by lantern light.
So it'd be a bit like the Cadburys in Bourneville, who looked after their staff, and
very much so. Well, George Singer encouraged recreation. We didn't just have a football club. There was a Singer Rugby Club, there was the Singer Bicycling Club, and there was the Singer Athletics Club. A lot of the football players, Henry Hathaway played both association football and rugby union for Singers. Cricket club as well. Harry Banks, he played cricket and football. So yeah, he felt. See, in those days they had to work Saturday morning. They worked long hours. Sometimes they probably wouldn't finish until 6 at night. And they'd work Saturday morning, maybe up till 1 o'clock, and then it was a rush down the pub. I don't blame them.
So Willie Stanley is the man who's really credited with forming the football club. Was it something that George supported?
Some of George Singer's speeches at the AGMs proved that he was fully behind all the clubs that had evolved out of the factory. That's a fact. There's no direct evidence to link him that he supported solely the football club, but I would imagine that would be the case, because if you did some research and looked at the cost of football boots and footballs, and at that time they were very, very expensive compared to a week's wages. So I think he subsidised a lot of the costs, and train fares as well. They travelled by train everywhere to go to games, away games. So Willie.
Go on.
Sorry, Dick. Yeah, I was just going to say Willie Stanley was the catalyst, and his stepbrother George Bowers. Willie Stanley, his mother's maiden name was Partridge, and the Bowers, Partridge and Stanley family were all lived in the Blakenhall district of Wolverhampton. There's a massive Wolverhampton connection, because Wolves, I think they were formed around about 1877, late 1870s. And believe it or not, their first pitch was literally 200 yards from where Willie Stanley lived, because he lived with the Bowers family after his father had died, because his mother remarried, and she married James Bowers. So that's the connection.
So did they form the club just for purely as a factory team for recreational purposes? Was that the idea initially?
Yeah, I think so. And then, of course, once they started, You see, this is another factor that George Singer did. He made jobs, highly paid jobs, available to really good footballers. So Singers were able to headhunt some of the best players from around the Midlands, particularly in the Birmingham area.
That's really interesting, because before we came on air, I was telling Lionel, Jim, about Darwin FC, and that my father-in-law, that's where they lived when they moved over here from Austria, and he's really into Blackburn Rovers and Darwin. He used to go and watch them both. And there's a book called, I think it's The Underdogs, that he gave me, and in there it talks about the Scottish players that they brought down to Darwin, and they used to pay them when they were supposedly meant to be amateurs, and the factory workers all got a bit uppity, so they thought, hold on a minute, we're meant to be amateur footballers, yet you clearly have paid these lads to come down from Scotland. But they were like the two best players from Queen's Park, I think.
Yeah.
So even in those days, it was going on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's right. And you know, there was a drama, TV drama made of the story of the Blackburn and Darwin rivalry.
Yeah.
And then it involved the Old Etonians, because it was the public schools that dominated association football in the 1870s, and it was the Lancashire clubs who were going professional that really upset the apple cart. It's a fascinating story. Yeah.
So where did? Sorry, Joe. I was going to say, where was the first meeting then? Where did they actually meet up in the first place to start Singers FC?
And it was the Lord Aylesford Inn and the club room upstairs in the Lord Aylesford Inn in Aylesford Street. So that was 13th of August, 1883. And I was very fortunate. There's a chap called Walter Joseph Harris, who Jim knows about Walter Harris extensively, you know, with his articles in the Million Daily Telegraph years ago. But I think it was not when we were winning the Third Division South Championship, 35-6, Jim. I think he had an extensive column in the Midland Daily Telegraph, the forerunner to the Coventry Telegraph, and he went back the story of the Bantams and went back right to the beginning. And that's, you know, that information that he left behind, including a full description of where the first pitch was, Dowell's Field, Samuel Dowell's Field. You know, Walter Harris, I would say, should be regarded as the club's first official historian. And it's interesting, just one thing, because I'm sure Jim can add to this, is that there was an area in Hill Fields, and I'd never heard of this because my dad was born. All my family come from Hill Fields on my mum's side and my dad's side. But Walter Harris referred to this area of Hill Fields. Been that many people coming from Birmingham and the surrounding areas, it was called Little Brummagem, Little Birmingham within Hill Fields.
Yeah, and of course, at that time, in the 1880s, the whole Hill Fields was the edge of the city, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah,
and all those houses between where Highfield Road was and the Binley Road didn't exist, did they?
That's correct. Yeah. I think it was George. Is it George Storer, the builder? He built many houses in that area.
Yes.
And you know, some of the expansion in Hill Fields there was the reason why they had to move from the second ground. You know, this is what we called the Stoke Road ground up to Highfield Road. So the Stoke Road ground was situated more or less behind the White Lion Hotel on the front there of Gosford Green. And where Britannia Street is now, that weren't built, but it would have been up to where Britannia Street is.
We used to drink in there before the game, you know, when it was a Highfield Road.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
What? Yeah, and the landlady was called Stuart because she was Scottish, and the story is that her mum and dad wanted a boy, and they'd picked the name Stuart, and she was born, and they couldn't be bothered to pick another name, so they just called her Stuart. And she was the landlady of the White Lion. So that would have been just before, late 80s, I think, around about then.
Yeah, that weren't the original pub, though, Claudio.
Oh, wasn't it?
No. I think that was built around about 1920s, 30s. It was knocked down to make way for Sky Blue Way. But I was very fortunate. I was sent a postcard where it, around about 1909, 1910, where it showed the original White Lion pub.
Right. So whereabouts was that then, in comparison to the new one?
It would have been. It would have been in the same area as the pub that was knocked down for Sky Blue Way. They just knocked the old one down, and then built that one. So it would have been more or less the same position.
Right.
And Road Ground, they moved there in 1887, and then because of the house, to finish off a bit about the house building and Britannia Street and Wren Street, all around there, that's when they moved to the next field up, to Highfield Road. So they just moved up 200 or 300 yards to the next field that could accommodate, decent turf and decent area to, history of Highfield Road, everyone knows,
So what's the first recorded match that you're aware of, Lionel?
I think it's the match against. We're not quite sure about the date. I think there's not a dispute, but it's trying to nail down the exact date when it happened. But we're supposed to have lost 9-0 to. I think it was 9-0 to Coventry Association.
Right.
George Bowers was interviewed by Walter Harris in one of his columns. He bumped into him. In the mid 1930s. George Bowers had been an old man by then. And of course, Walter Harris asked him a load of questions, and that was one of the questions he asked him, and he said it was against Coventry Association. So I think it was either 7-0 or 9-0 we lost.
Right. So that's 1883 then?
Yeah.
So what about when did they start playing a bit more competitively?
I think I would say the matches started to get reported a lot better in the local newspaper and the Midlands newspapers around about 1887, which coincided with the move to the Stoke Road ground.
Right.
And certainly by 1898 and 91, I mean, the key thing was winning our first trophy at the end of the 1890-91 season. The Birmingham Junior Cup, as you know, Jim, that was the first trophy.
So that's a competition that's still running today, isn't it? The Birmingham Junior Cup.
Yeah.
And so, there's the team.
Yeah, that's the 1891-92 team when they won the three trophies. So the Birmingham Junior Cup, the Wednesbury Charity Cup, and the Walsall Charity Cup. So that's the three with all the players' medals underneath.
So they were entering these competitions. Presumably they were part of the Birmingham County FA, were they?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly when we got membership. I think I'm not quite sure. I can't remember, to be honest with you. I'm sorry about that. Exactly when we got membership of the Birmingham and District, Football Association, but certainly by when they entered that league in 1894. Well, I think, in terms of the following, the supporters, the gates increased dramatically as the club signed better players and started winning a lot of games. I mean, the talisman was, we talk about in the mid 1930s, early 30s with Clary Borton. The talisman in the Singer period was Frank Mobley, the great Frank Mobley, so him and, William Durrell, Billy Durrell, their stories are quite incredible. I mean, it wouldn't be repeated today. So if you just take Frank Mobley as one example, he's playing for a works team, junior football as it's called. And then in 1892, in the summer of 1892, Small Heath come in and prize him away to make him a professional. A Smallheath became Birmingham City. And they were playing in the second division. So he went from works football straight into Division 2, which is just an enormous league. But he ended up, scoring loads of goals for Smallheath, and they actually they got in the first division. I think it was 1893, 1894, something like that. A similar story for William Durrell, who he joined at the same time Leicester Foss, who were in the Midland League, and then Aston Villa came in and bought him, and he went on to win the league with Villa, Division 1. So, we had two players that were, you could argue, Premier League quality. Within a couple of years, they were playing in the equivalent of the Premier League. Hard to believe, but it's true.
I'm going to read something out now, which is from David Brassington's book, Singers to Sky Blues.
Yes,
and it's a really excellent piece from 1889.
Yeah.
And this is a Birmingham Cup victory over Unity Gasworks.
Right.
So the piece is written by the football correspondents of the Coventry Mercury, whose pen name was Centre Forward.
Yes.
Isn't that wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Perhaps I should have a pen name for my column in the Telegraph.
I think you should. See, Walter Harris was the veteran. Walter Harris was the vet. He wrote under the veteran.
Yes.
You could call yourself the Libero or something.
Yes. So the Centre Forward wrote, "Whatever may be said to the contrary, I am firmly of the opinion that the association game is destined ere long to exceed in the public estimation the time-honoured rugby rules in Coventry. Up to the present, the pick-up game has held full sway in the city from the fact that the dribbling code, what there has been of it, found no favour with us. Now, however, a change is gradually being brought about, and a game that only 1 or 2 seasons ago was looked upon with indifference in Coventry is rapidly gaining in public favour. If any proof is wanted of what I say, I need only point to the match on Saturday between Singers and the Unity Gasworks in the 3rd round of the Birmingham Junior Cup, when about 1,400 spectators put in an appearance at Stoke Road, thus establishing what has been termed a record gate."
Wow.
So that was a turning point, I think.
Yes, which is why I said earlier they couldn't, they were struggling to attract crowds, and there weren't any, there weren't. If there'd been, say, 4 or 5 other association clubs, I think it would have been different.
Yes, yes. And then the following season, David says that they had additions to the fixture list. The first important one being Aston Villa reserves.
Yeah.
So Villa reserves would play at Stoke Road against Singers.
Yes, and I think also West Bromwich Albion reserves at the time, because they were top Division 1 clubs, weren't they, at the time?
Yeah.
So that was a big attraction to get Villa reserves and West Brom reserves there.
Yes. So
Jim. I also read somewhere, Lionel, that they had a big rivalry against the Rudge Cycle Club. Is that right?
Yes. Rudge. It's quite interesting, really, because the Rudge Bicycle Factory is based in Spon End, and Spon End had been massive for the watchmaking industry and the weaving industry prior to that, and of course Hillfields became known as the engineering, hub and the backbone of the bicycle industry. Well, Rudge eventually had to diversify, and they went into making bicycles. So Rudge and Singer were rivals on the commercial side of it, and there were rivals on the football pitch as well. And the Rudge Singer games were feisty. Oh, yeah, no quarters given. It was there's so many of them, well documented. Big crowds. Rudge used to play. The green area is still there, where the Red House pub was on the Stone Stanton Road. There's
Yeah.
a little park area there. That's where the pitch was. They called it the Red House Ground, and that was Rudge's home ground.
Fascinating.
Yeah. If I may, Claudio, I'd just like to read. Just going back to the first trophy
Okay.
that Singers won, because again, it's what Jim's just done. It'll only take a minute. Out of my book about the vocalist. Now, this is referring to the Birmingham Junior Cup final. Singers won, Willenhall, Pickwick nil. Frank Mobley scored the goal. 1,500 Singers supporters cycled to Perry Bar Ground in Birmingham to watch the game. They actually cycled there and back. 1,500. The crowd was 5,000. So this is 18th of April, 1891. But I've just a couple of paragraphs. It won't take too long. Says here, Singers returned from Birmingham shortly before 9 o'clock and were greeted by enthusiastic crowds who packed Hertford Street, Warwick Road and Eaton Road. The station yard was thronged with people and youth swarmed the high advertisement boards. Singers Apollo Band entertained the crowd. The Coventry Rugby Football Club players were there, waving their colours and shouting cheers for Singers. The Rudge Football Club had a special vehicle which displayed a red banner bearing in white the words, "Hearty congratulations from the Rudge Football Club to Singers Football Club on their victory today." Coloured fires and torches, which I would imagine would be fireworks, burned, accompanied by much cheering. At 5 to 9, the train ran alongside the platform at the train station. The crowd swarmed towards the entrance, everyone being anxious to gain the first sight of the trophy of the winning team. Very soon the cup was seen held aloft and the band played frantically. Hundreds of voices shouted hurrah. There was another blaze of crimson fire. The players were almost carried to the conveyance awaiting them and had to endure considerable congratulatory handshaking. Cashmore looked quite a wounded warrior returning from the battlefield with his head bandaged, but he managed to smile joyfully. The cup was displayed from the box seat of the Singers' horse-drawn carriage. This was at the front of the procession led by the Apollo Band, which moved along Eaton Road. As the light from the lamps gleamed upon the silver surface of the cup, the people went wild with delight. Approaching the vicinity of the Midland Daily Telegraph Office and the Queen's Hotel, the procession halted and the band played Old Lang Syne and the song Good Old Singers Never Rust. Hundreds of voices joined in the celebration. Handkerchiefs were waved from the upper windows of buildings. From the Queen's Hotel, a huge banner had been hoisted which read, "Hail, Champions of the Midlands."
That's fantastic.
Wow. Yeah.
I was just thinking, 1,500 cyclists. You're not going to overtake that on a horse and cart, are you?
No.
It's fascinating. And where would you park all the bikes? It's incredible.
Well, I don't know, but Jim, do you remember in the 60s in Swan Lane, they used to charge you sixpence to put your bike in the front garden? They'd guard it. The lady at the house. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Well, I think, right. Yeah, as you say, right up to the 60s, that was happening because
Yeah.
more people went around on bikes than had motor cars, didn't they?
Yeah. Talk
there
about
was-
homecomings, eh?
Yes. Yeah. And of course was it the following season they won 3 cups. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. 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 As I said earlier, the Wednesbury Charity Cup, the Warsaw Charity Cup, and the Birmingham Junior Cup again, they retained it.
Yeah. So this is 1892.
That's
so
right.
when
Yeah.
so they must have been close to thinking about joining a league, were they?
Well, I think they joined the Birmingham District League. I think it was 1894. 1894, 95 was the first league football, because obviously all the games before then had been friendlies, apart
Yes.
from separate cup matches.
Yes. So that's 1894 Birmingham District League, which that Birmingham League was still going strong in the 60s because Lockheed Leamington won it a couple of times in the 60s, early 60s. So that was a long-lasting league. So
Yeah.
Do you know some of the teams they were playing against in that first league season?
Not offhand, no.
I've got the fixtures here in
Have a look
front
at
of
the
me.
fixture list. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, the ones that stand out are Aston Villa reserves,
Yeah.
Wolves reserves, West Brom reserves,
Yeah.
and then you've got teams like Kidderminster Harriers.
Harrier, yeah.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
coming back a bit now.
Stourbridge still going, Hales Owen still going,
Redditch there.
Stafford Rangers, Redditch,
Redditch,
Briley
yeah.
Hill Alliance,
Yeah.
and then a few teams that probably don't exist. Old Hill Wanderers.
Yeah. I think they were a Wolverhampton team over that way. Albury, isn't it?
Yeah.
Over that way.
So the first league game was a 4-4 draw with Kidderminster Harriers.
Yeah.
And their first victory came in the fifth match where they beat Small Heath reserves. That was a good win, wasn't it?
Definitely, because again, that's Birmingham City later on.
Yes, but there were a couple of hammerings. Well, there were a few hammerings. Wolves reserves beat us 8-0, as did West Brom reserves. And Wolves reserves in the home game beat us 6-1. So it wasn't. We finished 13th out of 16 teams.
Well, there's an interesting story, Jim, about and the reason for that is that not only were we playing better quality teams, we'd lost Frank Mobley and William Durrell, but also Harry Edwards. And Small Heath had actually signed Harry Edwards. All them three played in the Singers forward line, and Small Heath had signed Harry Edwards first. And when he got to Birmingham, he told the Small Heath officials, "You've left the best man back in Coventry." He was on about Frank Mobley, and of course they went and signed him, didn't they?
Right.
Apparently that's true.
Are you surprised, Lionel, that there hadn't been a Coventry FC formed by now? Because obviously Singers were a factory team, came out of a factory. Is it a bit of a surprise that was no actual, somebody went, should we just form a team and call it Coventry?
Yeah, well, George Maley, who was the football correspondent eventually for the Midland Daily Telegraph, when that started, I think it was March 1891, something like that, 1890. He was employed, I think, originally at the Coventry Reporter newspaper. And he being born in Birmingham and playing football in Birmingham and having some experience of journalism in Birmingham, he knew all about Aston Villa and Birmingham City and Wall and all that. And he was one of the forerunners to try and get Rudge and Singers to amalgamate. And this rumbled on. I think Jim knows that this about the amalgamation between Rudge and Singers rumbled on for years, and it never happened in the end. So, which I think, I don't know whether it is down to rivalry or whether it is the fact that eventually Singers became so much better than Rudge. There was no value in taking any of their players.
But there was never ever the thought in the city that somebody just didn't pick up the the mantra and go, should we just form a football club called Coventry? It seems weird.
Yes, well, that's what George Maley was saying. He weren't the only one. There was others as well. He was saying we need a team to represent the city of Coventry. That's what he was saying.
Right.
It used to get discussed at the football club AGMs, fairly, maybe 2 or 3 times, but it never came to fruition.
Yes, that happened. Eventually, did happen though, didn't it? In 1898. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 12th of August 1898, when they'd decided they wanted to. I think Thomas Cashmore was one of the reason why Tommy Cashmore ended up with the letter from the Football Association, signed by Frederick Wall, the FA secretary. There was a dispute between Singers and Coventry Rugby Club because Coventry Coventry Rugby Club was originally called Coventry Football Club. So to
Yeah.
go for Coventry City Football Club, the rugby club was arguing that the names are too similar. But in the end, an agreement was made, and although the letters, I think the letters dated, is it 11th? The final
June.
letter, yeah, is it the 10th or 11th?
The
The
12th.
official, pardon?
It's the 12th of August. Yeah.
12th, yeah. So that's the date that they take, because it's official permission from the FA to change the name. 12th of August,
That's tomorrow.
1898.
Yeah.
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 Tommy Cashmore kept that letter and passed it down in his family right the way until present day, until a few years ago. And then I had the letter originally, keeping it safe. I traced a descendant of Tommy Cashmore, got the original letter and envelope. The person that the family actually asked for it back, which I had to give it back. The person that was handling it, unfortunately, got seriously ill and passed away. And it was either his cousin or his son didn't understand the importance of the letter. I was told that he got in touch with the football club, but they didn't. They should have referred this person to Jim, as the official historian. That didn't happen, and in the end, the guy just took it up to the National Museum, Football Museum in Manchester, and gave it them. And they won't give it us back, unfortunately. But at least we know it's safe.
Yeah.
So
those early years in the Birmingham League, when you look at the results and the final position, it was a struggle, wasn't it?
It
A
was.
struggle.
It was,
They got
because
they got some real thumpings,
they did,
especially
we lost
from the reserve teams of the football league sides.
It's a much higher standard at that time, and we
Yeah.
did lose some of our best players on an ongoing basis. But we've been there
Yes.
before, haven't we, with that over the years?
But I do notice that the second season they were in the Birmingham League, they entered the FA Cup for the first time.
Yeah.
1895. And their first game was against Hereford Thistle.
Yeah.
Don't know if that's. I think Hereford Thistle were in the Birmingham League as well at the same time.
Yeah.
So they won that 6-1 their first game. Went on to beat Kidderminster Harriers in a replay before going out to Burton Swifts in the third qualifying round.
Again,
I think Burton Swifts were a league side, weren't they, at the time?
I think they were, yes.
I think so, yeah. You just mentioned Hereford Thistle, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there were two Hereford teams. There was Hereford and Hereford Thistle, and I think they amalgamated in the end. But I'm pretty sure it's Mark Rideout who scored the first goal for Coventry City player at Highfield Road. This is 1899, and I've got a feeling that he played for Hereford Thistle against Singers.
Right.
When he was younger, like 17 or 18, 19, and we probably signed him when he was mid-20s.
So have you got any thoughts on what sort of attendances were at the games in that period?
What, the mid-1890s?
Yes.
Well, I would imagine it's only a few. I mean, they were all estimated, weren't they?
Yeah.
3, 4, 5,000. That's regular, I would imagine.
Which is pretty good actually for a works team, isn't it?
Well, yeah, definitely. Ridge went out of business. I think it was 1897, something like that. So, Singers were carrying the torch, so to speak. So anybody interested in association football would be watching Singers. But the next big rival came from Fosel, because again, then Fossil Village, I think it was outside the city boundary. So,
Right.
but Fossil Great Heath, the Great Heath, Little Heath, Great
Yes.
Heath, over that way. Fossil Great Heath had really good team, and they actually supplied some of the best players from Fossil Great Heath would play for Singers.
Right.
Yeah, they had this understanding, as was with Rudge. It weren't all bad blood between Rudge. We took some of their best players, during that mid 1890s period and up to 1900, where we were taking the best players from Rudge when they were still going, and Fossil Great Heath.
Are there any records of meetings and committee meetings from that sort of period? Has anything been kept, or because I imagine a lot of things get destroyed over the years when we...
Yeah, unfortunately, not committee meetings or like that. They were probably destroyed in the fire in 1968 at Highfield Road.
Of course, yeah.
But there are the AGMs. If you go on, I'm plugging Skygo
Oh, do
Archive.
it now. Do it. Plug it.
If you go on SkygoArchive.com, there's I've loaded up as much information about the Singer period. There's more to go on yet. And there's details of the AGMs there, the football club AGMs, which are quite interesting. And I've researched the people that were involved, where I can find out what I can about who they were and what they did and what was discussed, at the AGMs.
So this question goes to you both, really, because obviously you've written historical books. So where do you start then, Lionel, with something like Singers? How do you actually... You got a blank piece of paper, once upon a time, what happens next?
Well, the first person I tried to get the information on was William Stanley, as it was, because we always thought that he was a Coventry man, and his first name was William. Now, this is a true story. I must have spent at the time, it was about £9 a go to get birth certificates, right? And I tried. I looked up. I knew he was born in Birmingham, and I had to because of the census details. So I must have applied for something like about 10 birth certificates, and it kept coming back wrong. But the thing is, again, I go back to George Bowers and the interview with Walter Harris, because George Bowers in his interview said the Bowers family came from Wolverhampton to Coventry in 1862. So I thought to myself, right, let's try and get the Bowers family in Wolverhampton. So did I say 62? 1882. So the 1881 Wolverhampton census, get the Bowers family. And lo and behold, I got the 1881 Wolverhampton census. That's how I know they were living in Pountney Street in Blakenhall. And there you go. There's Willie Stanley.
Right.
Willie Stanley living with the Bowers family. Now, we knew that Bowers he's in that first team group photograph, 1885. He's on the front row, sat down with his legs crossed. If you put that up, Claudio, please, people can see. There he is. So if you're looking at, so he's second from the left on the bottom row with his legs crossed. And notice how they're wearing the shin pads on the outside of the socks.
Yeah, I think Frank Lampard should be in a team photo with the bowler hat on. Was it?
That's Mr. Smith. That's Mr. Smith, believe it or not.
That'd be fantastic. Imagine that.
William Smith, yeah.
And the kit looks all over the place as well.
Yeah,
it does, doesn't it?
Again, but just very quickly finishing about the Bowers. So once I'd got that, now, I knew that I looked at the 1881 census, and Willie Stanley's on the Coventry census as well. It's a quirk of fate, because in those days they used to have a clipboard and they'd knock on the front door, and whoever was in, they'd take the names down, starting with the man as being the head of the family, and then the wife and that. So the census was always taken in those days between January and sort of like March, April time. So George Bowers, Willie Stanley, must have left Wolverhampton after he'd been put on the Wolverhampton census, and then where he found lodgings in Coventry in 1881, that the premises where he lodged hadn't been done for the 1881 Coventry census, so he's on that as well. So it gave his age and where he was born. So from that information, I was eventually able to get his birth certificate, which said he was born at Birmingham, 1861, Willie Stanley. So that's where it come, get the information from.
And by this time, you still hadn't put pen to paper, I'd imagine.
Well, I'll cut a long story short, but basically, Willie Stanley was married twice. He had 14 children.
Blimey, there's a football team there.
Yeah, and 3 reserves. And I had, I did a full family tree for him,
right.
as I did for the Bowers family. And it was through that work that I was able to trace Ian Devoy, who's his great-grandson.
Who I think I met at the assembly.
Yeah, you probably did. Yeah, Ian's been a massive fan, season ticket holder for years.
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
It was quite funny when I rang him because it was on a Saturday, and I think we were losing 2 or 3-0 at West Brom. I couldn't listen to it on the radio anymore, so I rang the number. There was a number for him in the telephone directory. He answered. The phone was next to most of your books, Jim. So I'm talking to Ian Devoy, explaining to him that he's the great grandson of Willie Stanley, and he's looking at your books and he's saying, "Well, I've read Jim's books, and I know that my brother's maiden name was Stanley, but he was absolutely gobsmacked. He had no idea."
That's
and his father Terence was, I don't know if you recall, during the 60s, he used to have the St John's ambulance people round the outside of the cinder track at Highfield Road, and Ian's dad was one of them. So there was a massive connection to the football club. Yeah,
I think you ask about the research, and you wouldn't, if it was something happening today, you wouldn't have in 150 years, you wouldn't have the same kind of reporting that they did back in the Victorian times. If you look at, let's say, at the AGM of singers, the annual general meeting, you almost got verbatim everything that was said at the meeting and who was appointed. And it's absolutely fascinating. But the newspapers of today wouldn't cover it, would they?
No, they wouldn't. Even if they did cover it, it would only be a couple of sentences. They wouldn't, wouldn't put any detail in there. And this is why, even the great, Derek Henderson in the 60s and 70s, what he left behind, and of course George Maley, we haven't spoke much about him. Walter Harris, all these people.
Yes.
The very concise reports of the AGMs and the match reports again.
Oh, the match reports are brilliant. You get all the lineups. It's phenomenal. Something you don't even get lineups in the newspaper these days, do you?
No. I've just one quickie about George Maley. I can't remember what game it was because I've got that much information. I'm getting on a bit now. I can't remember everything. But George Maley wrote in his report. Can you imagine this in the Daily Mail or something, even the Coventry Telegraph? He said, "We got to the ground. I think it was a Birmingham Junior Cup match, and it was absolutely freezing. And there was about an inch or 2 of snow on the pitch. They still played. They didn't bother brushing the snow off. They just played." And he says, and there was like the reporters were all gathering, and he says, "And I must admit, I had to go to the bar and have a wee dram." Got a whiskey before he went to watch the game. Oh, great. I'd love to watch the game with him. What a character.
I've got a Pastime magazine from 1888, and it describes a fighting between Preston North End and Aston Villa fans at the side of the pitch, and the police horses around the side of the pitch. Absolute mayhem. But it's like 4 paragraphs about the fight and everything else, the crowd trouble, and not so much about the game, because I think the game was 0-0, and I think somebody got arrested and had a choice of something like a fine of 6 shillings or 2 weeks in prison. So they probably ended up in prison, probably. But it's you're right. It is fascinating. It's totally different to what you get now. Totally different.
Yes. So I think this is probably a good time to talk about the modern day initiative that we've got occurring very shortly, Lionel. You've been, well,
Yes.
the Sky Blue Archive team have been getting involved with. Well, I'll let you tell the story. It's to do with Willie Stanley and also the founder of Arsenal Football Club.
Yeah. Well,
Tell us this.
yeah, it was. I found Willie, just very briefly about Willie Stanley's grave. I found it in 2008, and with the help of it's Chris Duffin, who was the supervisor at London Road Cemetery. Now, that cemetery is, I'm reliably informed, it's the fifth most important in the country. And it was known as Coventry Cemetery, certainly before the Second World War. Now, once I found a grave, and I managed to find George Bower's grave as well, they were both unmarked. So by then, I'd traced Ian Devoy, and me and Ian, I said to Ian, look, what we've got to do is make a public appeal to raise money and get headstones for them, and then get the families to agree and the cemetery authorities to agree for suitable inscriptions, and allow the fact that we wanted something on the headstone to say that Willie Stanley was the founder of Singer FC and George Bowers was a founder player. All that came to fruition. We raised about £2.5 grand in 4 months. There was massive support from the club, Sky Blue Trust, Coventry City Supporters Club, London Supporters Club, Wales Supporters Club, all the supporters clubs all got, contributed. It was, great to do. We got the headstones, and when was it? I forget now. But we had I think it was obviously 2008, because it only took 4 months to raise the money, where we had a commemorative service at Willie Stanley's grave. And there was people came from all over the country as descendants, about 40 people. Some came from France, and we commemorated that way. Now, later on, my friend Ian Woolley, who's the chairman of the Friends of London Road Cemetery, it's a voluntary organisation like Sky Blue Archive Group, and he's been involved in many, many projects, not just tidying up the graves, but the Triumph Memorial there, he had that all cleaned up and spruce, paid for it, they raised the money, so that's similar type thing. And he told me, and he gave me some documentary evidence, that he reckons that the founder of Arsenal Football Club was buried in London Road Cemetery. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. But because he was writing a book on some of the people, their life stories of the people that were buried in there, and I was still finishing the research on the vocalist book about Singer FC. So I parked it to one side, but when I finally got round to visiting it, I managed to prove to Ian that, yes, David Danskin is the founder of Arsenal Football Club. And, so what, again, is lying in an unmarked grave? We can't have that. So I said to Ian, we need to start an appeal. Coventry City fans and the people of Coventry raising money to get a headstone for David Danskin. I contacted Arsenal Football Club, and somehow it got onto social media, and it went like wildfire and viral around London, and that alerted the Arsenal Scotland Supporters Club, and Martin O'Donnell, who I've kept in touch all these years. He contacted me because in 2007 they knew what David Danskin was born in Burnt Island in 1863, so they wanted to erect a blue plaque to commemorate that he was founder of Arsenal Football Club and from Burnt Island. And Arsenal sent Bob Wilson up to unveil the plaque, and it was covered by a couple of Scottish newspapers. Once I'd gathered that information, it It told me, one of the newspapers said that Richard Wyatt was David Danson's grandson and was living in Ontario, Canada. So I just went online and took potluck, and I put his name in, and Ontario Yellow Pages came up, scoured through that, looked at a Richard Wyatt, got a phone number, worked out the time difference, rang him one day. It was 9:15. He was in the shower, and his wife dragged him out of the shower, explained what it was all about, and then in the end, the rest is history. Just in terms of Arsenal raised it at their next board meeting. They passed it unanimously that they would fund the entire headstone and gravestone. It covers the granite covers the entire grave. It's absolutely superb. They covered that, and Martin O'Donnell and the Scottish lads came down on 2 occasions. One to visit the stonemasons to make sure everything was okay, and of course Richard Wyatt contacted all his descendants so that they could agree the wording on the gravestone. I think it was there was a special ceremony where we had 2000, I think it was April 2019, where the Arsenal CEO came up. Pat Rice, former player, represented them. Few Cov fans there and some Arsenal fans, and we had the event at the grave. So of course,
Fascinating.
yeah,
It is, and because David Danskin, what I gather, died in Warwick.
yes,
And they reckon he's one of the few survivors from the original. Is it Dial FC before they became Royal
it was
Arsenal?
Square Dials.
Yeah.
He left Scotland and went to the Royal Ordnance Factory in Woolwich in 1885, and Arsenal were formed. I think I've got the dates right. Just bear with me. Yeah, it was. He was employed at the Royal Ordnance Factory in 1885, and the Dial Square FC was formed in 1886, the following year. So of course he come down from Scotland. He played football, and he couldn't believe there were thousands of men employed at that. It was massive, that factory,
Yeah.
and no football team. So of course, a bit like Willie Stanley, singers, thousands employed,
Yeah.
well, 500 employed, no football team.
He'd have been alive with the great Arsenal team in the 30s, and of course Eddie Hapgood is buried at Leamington Spa Cemetery.
I didn't know that.
It's fascinating. It's got his
Yeah.
grave there, so it's incredible how they end up in where you don't least expect them to end up. Really.
Well, the reason why, David, if I may, I'll just very quickly finish.
Course,
Let Jim speak. The reason why David Duncan's buried in Coventry is because when he finished playing football, he's as an engineer, and also Willie Stanley, when he'd finished, he started his own bicycle business in Warsaw. That's why he's not on the 1885 team group photograph that you showed earlier. But going back to Danskin, when he finished playing, he did the same. He was an engineer, and he started his own bicycle business in Plumstead. And he sold that in 1907 because he'd become very successful. Because he must have seen in one of the employment professional publications at the time that there were highly paid engineering jobs being advertised at the Standard Motor Company, and he came to work at the Standard Motor Company. He bought a house in North Street in Stoke, and he was a regular visitor to Highfield Road during the 1920s and 30s. And in fact, the Daily Telegraph sent a reporter round to his house, I think it was 1931, to interview him because they'd got wind that he was the founder of Arsenal FC.
I wonder if he was involved in the transfer of Leslie Jones from Coventry to Arsenal in 1937.
Interesting comment. You never know, do you? You never know. You go back to
so tell us now what's happening.
Well, we haven't finalised plans totally yet, but Martin O'Donnell has managed to get, again, Arsenal fans, even though he's been to loads of games, he's still struggling to get tickets for games because of the demand, and they have these schemes, where you've got to earn points. But he's managed to get a ticket for the game, so he's driving down. He's going to leave about 7:30 Friday morning on the 21st of August. He's driving down from Scotland. He's going to go straight to the cemetery. The skybluearchive.com, we've purchased 2 18-inch wreaths, one in red and white flowers for Arsenal and David Danskin, and one in sky blue and white for Willie Stanley and Coventry City. They're going to be laid on the grave. All being well, Ian Devoy will be able to lay the Coventry City wreath, and Martin O'Donnell, representing Arsenal, will lay the wreath on David Danskin's grave. And we're hoping to start proceedings at 2:00 at the cemetery. But there's
This
a
is on the day of the game.
Day of the game, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
we thought
wonderful
that was
we've got this,
sorry, Jim.
this tie with Arsenal, isn't it? It's a
I'll be on
wonderful tie-up.
Yeah,
I'll be on the coach.
But of course, you know, I mean, when the fixture was announced, you know that they choose the Friday night fixture. I think I'm right in saying this. You know, please someone correct me if I'm wrong. But it's like the showpiece, isn't it? It's the start of the new Premier League showpiece game, and it's the Premier League champions against the Championship champions. You couldn't make it up. And the fact that we've got the founders of both of those clubs buried in Coventry, it's uncanny, really. And one last thing about David Danskin's grave, and this I just still can't get my head round it. Obviously, everyone knows that they're nicknamed the Gunners, you know, with the cannon, the Gunners from the Ordnance Factory. There's 2 World War I soldiers, one at the headstone and one at the foot of the grave, and they're both from the First World War, and they were in the Royal Warwickshire Regiment, which was a gunnery, and they've got the gunners in the gunner insignia, the cannon insignia was the Royal Warwick, so they're there. Yeah, I think they were Royal Warwicks, but they were certainly gunners anyway. So you've got 2 World War I gunners buried, and it's like head to toe, and it's as if they're guarding David Danskin's grave. You couldn't make it up, could you?
Well, that's going to be a great occasion, and the fact that it's going to take place on the day of our first game back at the Emirates, it's wonderful, isn't it?
It is. I think it's the right thing to do as well. And just finishing on the cemetery, I mean, I don't know of any other cemetery in the country that's got 2 founder members and players of the club, you know, of professional clubs buried in the same cemetery. If anyone out there does know, please get in touch, you know, with Jim and Claudio and let us know. It's fascinating.
Lionel, before we wrap up, this has been fascinating, by the way. One of the best episodes for me, because it's great to hear about. If you love the history of football, regardless of just the club, it's just a fascinating listen. Briefly about you then, I just want to know, can you remember the first game you went to?
I can. It was 64-65 season, I think. Was it Plymouth at home, Jim? You might have to, again, my memory. I think, did we win?
The opening game.
Yeah, the opening game. Was it Plymouth at home? 2-0, that was it, I thought, yeah. Yeah, it would be that one, yeah.
34,000 crowd.
Yeah, I remember it well. I was at the. I used to have to take a wooden stool. Can you imagine this now? Taking this up to the CBS, a wooden stool to stand on because I couldn't see over the top of the blokes' heads. I'm right at the back, at the crow's nest where the flagpole and flag used to be. So I'm leaning against the barrier. I've got my wooden rattle. I've got my scarf and my pom-pom hat with all the star badges on. You know, and I'm watching the games from the crow's nest. 1964.
So apart from obviously promotion first time round to Football Division 1, Football League Division 1, and of course the Cup Final, anything that stands out for you as a Coventry City fan? I know we've got the recent stuff, but anything going back a few years that you could...
Well, for me, I know Jim was going to the games before me, but the one for me would be the Wolves game. I'll never forget. I had to, the lads, and I mean, I used to go up with, you know, we were all between the ages of 8 and sort of 12, 13. And I remember, so for the Wolves game, I was 11 or 12 years old, and I had to go up on my own. But I knew it was going to be a big crowd, so I managed to get in. Couldn't see a great deal. I weren't one of those that were passed over the fence into the cinder track, which you couldn't see. With people up the floodlight pylons and on top of the stand roofs. But I managed to get in front of the Sky Blue stand and saw the game from there. So, 3-1. 1-0 down with Peter Knowles had scored. And then Machin, Gibson, Reese, weren't it? Ernie Machin, Ian
That's
Gibson,
right.
Ronnie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And come on, Jim, you found out about the official gate. You corrected it, didn't you?
Yeah, the official crowd wasn't 51,455. It was 452.
There you
It's
go.
official in the football league journals.
There you go.
Just going back to Lionel, I met Lionel in the early 70s when I used to go with a friend from Whitnash called Dave Freeman, and I moved to London and didn't see as many. I saw a lot of the home games, but I didn't see so many of the Northern away games. But Dave and Lionel hooked up with a few others,
That's
and
right.
you went several seasons with Dave, going to every single game, home, away, friendlies,
1970.
overseas.
Yeah, I was saying from 1972 to 1982, I saw every first team game, home and away, cup, even friendlies, league, and I saw them playing Sweden end of season tour, and also we went over to France for when they played. I think it was 1974, 76 for Sweden, 1974 in France, where to Nantes, where Bernard Blanchet, who was I think a French international playing for Nantes at the time, they invited Coventry for his testimonial game. Had a fantastic time there, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and in those
sweet.
days, of course, you told me some of the stories of those trips where there were so few Coventry fans. You got invited into the players' after match celebrations and
That's
parties,
right.
didn't you?
Especially the friendlies.
Yes.
I remember one specifically, but I've got to be careful what I say here, and it involved Mick Ferguson. So
He's not
We,
listening. He's not listening.
at Gainsborough Trinity, believe it or not. Don't ask me what. I think it was 72-3, something like that.
yeah.
73-4. It was early 70s anyway, and we got invited in, and I've never seen so much food in all my life on these tables. So we piled into that because we'd had a few beers before the game, and there was all these girls, young girls, hanging around the players, and that's all I'll say.
You
So,
didn't tell him you were a centre forward, did you?
they weren't hanging around us, but they were hanging around people like Mick Ferguson and Alan Green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Brilliant.
yeah, you did a fantastic record, 10 years without
Yeah.
missing a single
I didn't miss a
game.
single game. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I mean the Aberdeen. There was the Aberdeen friendly and the Texaco Cup games. But the
Yeah.
Aberdeen friendly, I flew to Dice Airport. It is a very quick story to end with then, for me. Don Nardiello, his girlfriend at the time, I was working at Rolls-Royce at Parkside, and his girlfriend was working there. I didn't know until she introduced herself. Well, the team flew from Birmingham Airport to Dice Airport, and they'd got a coach to take them into Aberdeen's city centre. I think this is around about 76, 77, something like that. And I didn't know, but I was on the same flight. So I was chatting to some of the players and that. And then when we got off the plane, Don Nardiello come up to me and said, "How you getting into Aberdeen?" And I goes, "Oh, we're here, aren't we?" And he goes, "No, this is 8 mile away." So he had a word. He had a word. I'm pretty sure it might have been earlier than 70. Anyway, it was Gordon Milne. He had a word with, I think it was Gordon Milne, Ron Wiley, and he said he got me on the coach. So I was on the team coach, went to their hotel. I mean,
Wonderful.
those days,
It wouldn't happen today,
it
would
just
it?
wouldn't happen today. No.
In fairness, that run of games, apart from 77 season, it wasn't. We were doing all right in the 70s, weren't we? That 10-year spell.
Yeah.
We had some good seasons in that 10-year
77,
spell.
8 was excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fergie and
Lionel,
Wally.
it's been absolutely wonderful to hear the stories of singers. I hear about what's happening a week on Friday at the cemetery, and I'm sure people might like to come along and witness the ceremony. And I think
Yeah,
we're going to get some coverage on BBC, aren't we? Midlands Today.
As far as I know, BBC Midlands Today are going to be there, and also BBC
Yeah.
Coventry, Warwickshire. The biggest problem, Jim, just very quickly, is the logistics of getting from Willie Stanley's grave to David Danskin's, because Willie's buried in the old part of the cemetery and David's in the new part of the cemetery, and there's quite a distance
Right.
between them, and it's
Right.
difficult with cars, so there's going to be a bit of walking.
Yes.
I have to use a bicycle. That'd be apt, wouldn't it?
That's a good idea.
So for those listeners who'd like to know even more about the Singers era, I can thoroughly recommend Lionel's book, The Vocalists, which tells the story. It's the whole of the Singers' story in detail. There's also David Brassington's book, Singers to Sky Blues, which is not as detailed, but is just as interesting. They're both really good books, and I recommend both to anybody who wants to know more. So thank you so much, Lionel. It's
all right, Jim. Just the bulk of the singer information is on the Sky Blue Archive website. So
of course,
that's
the
first port of call.
Yes, skybluearchive.com.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
No, it's absolutely wonderful, and it's an important part because it's registered. We know about it, and it's great to. Well, you completed the story of Coventry City really, because obviously Jim had done his bit, but we needed the bit before. And
and that's why I concentrated on because Jim had gone from 1894 onwards. Jim's books and other people's books are absolutely fantastic. But there weren't much information about the Singer period, so I concentrated on that. And thankfully, we've got it all now. And the Coventry City Sports Club, what they contributed over the years, that's important. And I've also done, although it's not been published, we've got the full history of Coventry City Ladies Football Club. So it's pretty comprehensive.
Brilliant. Lionel, no doubt I'll see you probably around the stadium or at some function or something or other. Jim, I might see you on Friday. You going to the game?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Lionel. Absolutely brilliant.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. Remember, if you want to contact Jim, it's jim@claryborton@gmail.com. Any ideas? We'd love to discuss them and talk. If you want to be a guest and come on, if there's anything that you can bring to this podcast, it'd be wonderful to hear from you. So it's a good night from me.
Good night from me.
Good night from me.
Maybe a company business. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Whoa.